Andrew, what a pleasure to see you here.
Tian, a great pleasure to be here with you.
You have been going around China looking for where to take actions in terms of cooperation and filling the dots of the supply chain for what you are passionate about, the green hydrogen.
Yeah, look, we're seeing the level of automation, the level of robotics, the level of manufacturing really increase dramatically here in China. Now, we'd like to take your best companies, your industry and national leading companies, and take them to other countries in the world in joint venture with us. Australia and Fortescue is very popular all over the world, particularly ourselves as a company. We're welcomed in everywhere. And we'd like to take Chinese companies with us to establish large manufacturing centres for the full ecosystem supply chain that is needed by the world, which the world must have if it's going to meet its goals.
Tell me more about this supply chain. What are some of the important dots that you are looking at right now?
Okay, so as a global business person, if I want to get an oil rig or a gas pipeline or say a big coal-fired generator, I can just ring up and they'll say, where would you like it and what time this afternoon? Whereas if I'm in the green electricity or green fuel business, I have to actually invent it myself. You know, it's just not there. Yet the world is saying it wants to go green. Global warming is now not a prediction. We're living in it. It's upon us.
So you have to invent the wheel in a way.
So what I'd love to see is that Chinese companies have come with me on this journey. I didn't know, they didn't know, but we are together marching down this journey. Now we've connected.
What have you found out?
I found out that for wind, for batteries, for mobility, big trucks, small trucks, cars, electrolyzers, all the ecosystem, which we're developing in Australia, is being developed or has been developed also here, and that when we combine forces, we'll be able to manufacture at great scale. And it's only great scale which will save this planet. It's only great scale supply chain in the green ecosystem which will save humanity, because right now most of the people, everyone watching this television, will not know how dangerous global warming is and how it's upon us now.
The joint forces I'm very interested in, because right now we heard about geopolitics. It's not your job to handle it, by the way. You're a business person, but you have to deal with it.
Yes.
On a daily circumstance. So what about that global supply chain debate, including, it seems that some global companies are trying to do China plus one, sort of kind of backup if the China supply chain did not work at a certain time. So what is your take on how supply chain works? What is the best way? And at this moment, when you have geopolitical and other realities that you have to deal with, what is the best way for you as a business person?
I, as a member of this little human planet, and as a scientist, do have a responsibility to inform those who are worrying about geostrategic economic blocks that all their concerns are puerile, visionless, selfish, lacking in care for the future if they put those interests above the immediate interests of the natural ecosystem, because that's getting destroyed around our eyes if we don't move quickly away from fossil fuels. So one, we must start with that message, that if you're putting your political or geostrategic interests ahead of all of humanity and your children, then they will judge you very badly. Two, I'm seeing Chinese manufacturing companies with a real adventurous attitude to go offshore, to join me in a global endeavour to establish the supply chains the world must have in order to fully address global warming.
What about that competition, cooperation? How do you see that? Well, you are trying to develop the global supply chain for the green hydrogen you are developing. What about in the near future? Are you seeing cooperation or are you seeing more competition?
Look, they're both there. I mean, you know, collaboration and competition are both really good things. Countries and companies competing, and scientists and technologists and all providers competing with each other basically raises the curve for everyone. So competition is a good thing. It's good fun. People enjoy it. They spring out of bed to have it. When it comes to negative competition, which is where countries are stepping over the interests of their people to say, okay, we're not going to compete, we're not even going to collaborate, that's bad. Now, I'm suggesting very strongly, say, look at North America, look at Europe, look at China, look at the Asian bloc, look at Australia. We must compete, but in a friendly manner. We must not block our citizens and block our companies from really getting the best technology from any part of the world, manufacturing from any part of the world, stitching them together to make the most competitive supply-side solutions to make green energy as abundant and as ubiquitous as oil, gas, coal is now. We simply must get there, but now we must get there urgently.
Over the decades, we've seen the relations, including people to people, between Chinese and Australians, have been blossoming. There seems to be, just over the past few years, some artificial disruptions that have been very much the trouble. How do you see at this point now we can really move between the two countries and around the world interacting? The priorities needs to be done.
Well, look, I'm very firm on this. I think nations' national interest to find is their freedom to care and look after their people is always protected by improving trade relations with other countries, improving employment in your own country, improving the standard of living for each of your citizens.
That's the legitimacy of the government.
Yeah, well, and all governments actually have that responsibility. So I feel we can totally enhance the national interest of our countries, strongly improve our trade relations, invest in each other's economies, have Chinese take advantage of the fact that Australia now has projects all over the green hydrogen world, now has projects all over the green electricity world, and take advantage of that, because we need now Chinese manufacturing, and Chinese manufacturing needs opportunity to grow. This is the correct symbiosis, the correct gelling of interests, which will create the harmony to bring global warming to an end. But we have to make it happen. We cannot wish it. We cannot design against it. We have to drive it ourselves.
I know you, after years of research, have decided to put your bet, quote unquote, on green hydrogen, but I guess that process is not necessarily that easy, because you have to do a lot of things in terms of technology, standards, investment, and the list goes on. At this point, how would you reflect back in a way? I know you want to move forward, but how would you reflect back about this decision? What is the critical moment for you? What was that moment like for you when you were, maybe deciding on this, finally, the direction of your career?
For me, the critical moments were during my research, when I did my doctorate, and I discovered the Tibetan plateau, which is not far from where we are, a massive frozen mass, a huge frozen mass, and the Russian permafrost starting to melt. And when they melt, when they let go, they release enormous, like humanity can never match it, enormous amounts of methane and carbon dioxide. And that could cause runaway global warming. The only way to stop that happening, destroying our planet, is if we stop global warming now. So I thought, what can I do as a philanthropist, a businessman, a scientist? What can I do to drive this? So I set myself as an example. People can decide to follow or not follow, but at least they know the science is right and we must act.
Final question. Trust. So important. So difficult to come by, especially now. As a business person, how do you see that can be built even today and maintained, most importantly?
In times of crisis, trust is what saves humanity. Australia went into a COVID-19 crisis and, like China, needed tests. There was no vaccines, there was no nothing, certainly no cures. We did a handshake agreement, a verbal agreement, with the chairman of one of your most advanced, largest science companies to get those tests into Australia in double quick time, like jets moving straight away. when all the world needed those tests. Now, it was a handshake of trust, not a written agreement, where we sent $240 million to China, and they sent the scientists, the equipment, and the tests back, just on a handshake. Now, that's huge trust, and I'm saying to every Australian and every Chinese, now's the time to really develop a relationship of trust. Now's the time, if you're a North American and a Chinese, to actually recognize your massive similarities and put to one side your differences. No one's going to cause a violent invasion of another country from the Chinese side or the North American side. No one's going to take from anyone else. We're here to save the future of our children. Let's move to that similarity, put aside our differences, put aside our fears, and move to the fact that there's no point in squabbling between us, in arguing who has the biggest economic share or not, when we decimate the future of our children through not addressing, through industrial scale supply chain provision, the cessation or the ending of global warming.
Andrew Forrest.
Thank you.
What a pleasure.
Tian, very nice to see you again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.